All right, I'm about to jump into my training, but I want to make this video first because the Tyson Paul fight demonstrates why we must train according to our age. I just watched an interesting video from a doctor who explains the ins and outs of the fight and the age difference, the age gap, and why Tyson was expected to look like he looked like as a 58-year-old, and why Paul was pulling his punches in the literal sense of the word because he didn't want to hurt Mike. Now, this is not about a fighting analysis. I'm not a fighter, but I specialize in helping over 40s, 50s, and 60s train and get into the shape of their life with a particular method and tool that I believe is perfect for this age group. And we must understand that once we get a little bit older, we have to adapt our training philosophy. And I want to talk about this a little bit in this video. And if you're over 40 and you want to become strong, fit, and lean without going to the gym twice as fast, download my free ebook in the first link in the description. Grüezi miteinander, Gregory von Lebe here. Many of you have an opinion about the fight. I remember one of my clients, he asked me, he said, Gregory, what do you think? What's going to happen between Tyson and Paul? And I said, well, Mike Tyson is a beast, but we have to put into perspective that he is 58 years old and Paul is 27-year-old. And then he immediately responded with, yeah, but if you look at the fight videos that Mike posted, these Tyson videos, he's back. Look at his movement. Look at the speed. Look at the punches. And I told him, yes, but these are 10, 15, and 20-second clips. These are highly edited. These are to pump up the fight, to make promotion and get people interested. The doctor in the specific video, which I'm going to link in the video, in the description, he talked about how it is important that you have to have a medical commission that approves these fights and make sure that they protect the fighters from themselves, because if you are over 36, listen up, if you're over 36, you are considered an older athlete. That makes you feel old, right? It really makes you feel old. And that maybe the age gap shouldn't be more than 10 years, because degenerative changes happen whether we want them or not. It's just fact of the matter of being human. It's the human condition that these degenerative changes are going to happen. As you get older and as your body is changing, you have to adapt your training strategy. This sounds corny, this sounds basic, this sounds over the top. It maybe sounds like, yeah, that's bird's eye perspective knowledge. Everybody knows that. But we can't go balls to the walls all the time. You can't lift heavy all the time. A lot of athletes go heavy all the time. A lot of weekend warriors go heavy all the time. So pushing yourself to the limit is good, but you have to give your body enough recuperation and rest and train accordingly. Yesterday, I went balls to the walls and I felt completely gassed. And I can't explain why. Everything's fine. That little tweak in the back is almost gone, but I felt destroyed, actually. I wanted to quit. Every single fiber in my being wanted to quit that workout, but I persisted. And I persisted in a way that I recognized, all right, I gotta shift gears. I gotta put my foot on the brakes and say, it's not always no pain, no gain. Because if you continually push through the pain, you're gonna experience severe chronic pain and probably injury down the line, especially as we get older. I was reminded of the fact that my body breaks down like everybody else's too. Now, I can do many things to combat this, and I can do a lot of things to reverse that process to a certain extent, but it's inevitable that it's going to happen. I recognize that you cannot train like you trained in your 20s if you compare yourself with your younger self. If you've been an elite athlete or an elite lifter, or you always went balls to the walls 10 or 20 years ago, now you can still push the limits, but these limits are not at the same threshold or at the same precipice like 10 or 15 years ago. And that's something that you have to realize. So lifting heavy all the time, you probably have to explain to your ego that these heavy weights are not manageable as I get older. That volume is probably not manageable all the time. Sometimes I'm so gassed out that I have to stop and I can't pursue or persist in that training method that I currently have, and I have to put my foot on the brake. That doesn't make me weak. Your muscles do not understand it. Your bones do not understand it. Your ligaments, your body, your organism doesn't understand it. The only thing that understands what's happening is your brain and your mind and your ego that's probably in the way between you training according to your age and you understanding that, hey, I probably have to adapt a little bit. And this brings me to the topic of kettlebell training. See, we specialized in kettlebells. And one thing that I've noticed is the over 40, 50, and 60 group, especially the over 50 and 60 group, everybody has ailments. Everybody has issues. Everybody has some shoulder problems. Everybody has some hip problems, some knee problems, some artificial knees, some artificial hips, some ankle problems, some neck problems, some pain in some type of area, not just always from the physical perspective, just from a mental awareness perspective. Some people are just from a mental capability or the mental strength, they're not as tough mentally. So you're not able to push through a very hard workout, even if you want to. So you have to segue into this. You got to work with somebody who can segue you into an intensity that fits not only your age, but also your level of fitness. And yes, we can always strive for better and we can always try to improve, but we have to understand and recognize the human limits. The physical condition affects each and every one of us. Doesn't matter what you see on social or when people take drugs. A lot of people take drugs and what happens to them? It's not that they're faster and stronger as they get older, or maybe from a comparison standpoint, maybe yes, but they put themselves into an even more dangerous position because then you augment or you try to bypass that aging process and try to lift weights in a sense where your body cannot handle it anymore. It's not just the muscles, it's the bones, it's the ligaments, the blood flow, your heart, everything is affected by training, which is good, but we have to understand how to go about it. And with the over 50 and 60 crowd, here's what I recognized. I've recognized that we can push our clients and that part of the demographic of society. We can push them, but we have to understand the limits and we have to be aware and always ask. See, that's what I do every time we have a training session with our clients. I always ask, hey, the next day, or I tell them, give me feedback. How was it? So then according to the feedback, we can then adjust the intensity. And we can then say, all right, maybe this exercise wasn't the best choice, so we have to dial it down a little bit. So here's the interesting dichotomy. If you hear me speak and you stop right here abruptly and you have a negative outlook on life, you might think, all right, see, that's the reason why life is over after 40 or 50 or 60. No, it is not. You can always run the fastest according to your age group, to your level of fitness of where you're currently at, because you live in the present, not in the past and not in the future. But if you make the comparison game with your younger self, this is going to hurt your progress. And I understood quickly that the kettlebell with its ballistic exercises, and yes, there is some explosive elements to it, but with the explosiveness, we also have to be a little bit careful. Explosiveness has to do with how fast can your brain trigger the muscles and how good does your coordination work. So as you get older, your cerebellum takes a hit and then your coordination suffers. So that level of speed, you're probably not able to display it, but it doesn't matter. This means, okay, you're not able to push these weights, but we can move down the line and still push some serious weights according to your level of fitness. And I know I'm preaching to myself here because ego most of the time stands in the way, but we have to get smart about it. And this is where I believe the kettlebell comes in. Not a lot of weight choices. These choices fit individuals very good. So 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32 kg. It fits the individual well. Not a lot of thinking, and especially the ballistic exercises where you engage into the pendulum, where you let your body move, the whole body moving into the exercise. It pushes that type of flow feeling. It increases the blood flow. It improves the ligament, the strength, the muscle, the joint action, and everything that's involved and that cooperates when you move the body. And you have to push your coordination levels when you work with a kettlebell, because working one side, it means that there's a powerful thing that's called the cross education effect, Or if you train one side, the other side gets some gains too, even though it remains still. It's powerful stuff. And you can try this when you do a jerk, for example, with the right hand. So you push the bell overhead and you land into a second dip to minimize the distance. Your opposite lat is working like crazy because the opposite side is always making sure that you're not falling over. This is powerful stuff. So that's why unilateral training is so interesting. And that's why the kettlebell comes in. Bringing weights overhead means you will always build your strongest you if you push weights overhead continuously and heavy to an extent where it really challenges you, but it's not too much. So training according to your age means you have to find a method that can really help you, that suits your age, that suits your level of fitness. And it's not that you can be that same explosive and crazy guy or gal that you were when you were 20, just like that Mike Tyson video, these shorts prove that he was not capable of displaying this type of veracity and speed and power and strength that he was able to back in his prime, which is normal. But we got the illusion. So we got the impression that he was able to do it. So that we got a rejuvenated version of Mike Tyson who comes up and beats Jake Paul into pieces. And that's not what happened. So understanding that your body will falter and that your body will break down means you probably have to look for a different means of training. And here's the final point that I want to make clear in this video, and that is you can train intensively, you can use solid weights, you can challenge yourself, you can get a real sweat even if you're over 50 and 60 with a kettlebell workout that can really give you a lot of bang for your buck. Because what I have seen is we've almost had no injuries here. And I can even say no injuries in the last 4 or 5 years. Nobody hurt themselves here. Even though we use heavy weights, we work with clients who have shoulder issues, who have to go take surgery for their shoulder, but they're still able to move heavy weights and they feel strong and solid afterwards. And that's another powerful thing that I want to relate to you. And that is when you're suffering because of a physical ailment, if that's the shoulder, the knee, or the hip, here's what you might be thinking. You might think, all right, so my body, I have to discard my body. That's age. I'm breaking down. All right, so the battle's lost. So you get into this mental decay, this downward spiral where you think you are not worthy or valuable anymore. And that's not the case. Just because your shoulder has an issue doesn't mean that the rest of your body must be discarded. No. And that's the feeling that we give our clients. And yesterday, one of our clients said the following. She said, here's what you do, Gregory. You empower me to move these weights. For example, she's having a big shoulder issue with her right side. I think it's the right side, yeah. And she was doing double cleans, cleaning the bells up. That's a super solid exercise for the shoulders. So the first reps, she failed. Until I explained to her, you got to stomp your feet into the ground. You got to lift with your legs. And afterwards, she told me, everybody else would be like, okay, let's leave that. It's not possible. Let's use something different. Let's use another weight, or let's use another exercise. But you challenged me and you gave me the impression and the feeling and the confidence that I can do it because you believed in me. I believed in myself. That's powerful stuff. And yes, in some cases, you realize, okay, the weights are still too heavy. Let's move to something else. We experiment, right? I don't want to talk too much about coaching, but the idea is find somebody who believes in you. Find somebody who understands that over 40s and 50s and 60s have to train a little bit differently according to their age group. Has nothing to do with body type. A squat, a press, a swing, that's good for everybody. But you have to find the proper dosage, the proper weight. And maybe some exercises are just off the list. You cannot do them anymore. And other exercises are welcomed where you have to say, all right, I have to do these more. So here's the next thing that you have to do. Clean and press the like and subscribe button. Share with a friend who's also interested in kettlebells. And if you made it this far, download my free ebook in the first link in the description called The Kettlebell Code. If you're over 40, 50, or 60, you don't have a lot of time, but you still want to take care of your fitness, this is where the kettlebell comes in. And I'm going to help you get started with the kettlebell. I think it's one of the best tools ever for that age group. So what are you waiting for? Download the free ebook right now in the first link in the description. It's 100% free.